Oh my goodness, what a day. Okay, it's definitely working now. I'll have to scrap the beginning of this video. So, hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 32 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Clare Rowley, and I'm the inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products. And we will be using the Satinedge Foot, and if we have time, I'll be doing some free motion quilting using the Octi-Hoops as well, because we have so many new Octi-Hoop customers that I think it would be nice for me to show more of that. I gotta get something working here. There. Okay. That's awfully bright. So I started with the outro instead of the intro, which gives me 2 minutes. And I have a little bit of my little muffin here left to eat. And I'll have to sneak that in at some point. I have been working on this quilt for years, you guys. In the beginning, I didn't really quite have a vision for it. And I just kept piecing, half square and quarter square triangles together and creating squares. And I created this solid piece, and it was just that. And it was lacking something. And I don't know if any of you have ever done it before. You think, oh, I know exactly what colors I'm going to want. And you pick them out and you sew them together, and it just kind of goes, eh. And it's because I didn't allow for any negative space. I didn't give myself any just plain colors. So I took the entire quilt apart, and I haven't taken it completely apart because these are still some pieces that are sewn together the wrong way. And I would have had time to gather all this together beforehand, but I'm relaunching my art career, so I pretty much have 2 jobs this week. Getting ready for an art intake at a gallery, at our Mountain Artist Gallery in Prescott, Arizona. So, spread my brain a little bit thin this week. I'll get better at it. And a lot of my art will end up having a professionally photographed, the stuff I do on fabric as well. And we'll be able to print my paintings on fabric for you to quilt on. So I hope that makes you feel better for me splitting my brain between sewing and art. Hi, Pearl, Lucas, and Cynthia Purdue, I believe. Fiona Jane. Is it your birthday yet? And Tina, I think I said Tina already. All right, I'm ready for a nap. Will you forgive me for not being completely ready? But look at the back. See my wall? Those squares are being held on by just the bamboo batting. And instead of waiting for my design wall to be finished and hung, I'm just going to tack the batting to the wall. And then those are just held perfectly flat with nothing else. The static cling from the bamboo batting holds your fabric so well that you don't need to pin it. It just being held on there. I have too many notepads here. Now, don't think I haven't been using my notepad. I've been carrying it everywhere. In fact, I brought it in the room so that if I needed to make notes, I can make it in my notebooks. This is last week's and the weeks before lesson. So for those of you who are just joining in the show and you haven't seen any of our prior episodes, last week I showed how to make this quilted piece of fabric that I inked first into a notebook cover that you can take the notebook out and put a new notebook back in. All right, move this aside for now. Okay, one of the things that I do when I make a quilt is if I have a specific size that a piece has to be, I like to have a piece of that cut to the actual size and placed beneath my Caterpillar light tablet pad. You can also put tape on the tablet so that you know exactly what square is, and you can lay a piece of fabric right over it and then cut. I don't know if I'm making any sense at this point. So my squares, when they're finished, are 8, and prior to that they're 8.5. This one is not square, and that was because I was careless when I cut. So none of these are going to pass the mustard for making into a quilt, or this quilt. But I can save it. And since I have more fabric, I'll cut. If I don't find an 8.5, I think that's what stopped me the last time I started sewing. Because I did get quite a bit of my squares finished the last time. I was thinking I could sew these together. Instead of doing my quilt, I could piece 4 pieces I have together, and I could then quilt through it and not put you through me squaring everything off. You guys vote. I know you guys are, whatever you want to do, Claire. That's not how you guys act. So you vote. Would you like to see me make a block out of, they're kind of contrasting. Would you rather me put a block together using these drunkard path shapes and then quilt through it, or make one of my quilt blocks for my quilt? And that will force me to get myself in gear to finish this quilt. Know that I cannot wait until this quilt is done. What do you guys say? You're sitting at an easel about to watercolor? Oh, I hope you share it in the school. And by the way, I'm going to open a group called Beyond the Brushstrokes soon inside of the school. And I'm going to be posting all of my art inside of there, and tutorials on art will begin. And so I'll probably put in there also the most recent art that is not available to buy until this show opens on the 24th. Make a quilt block for your birthday. My birthday's not till January, Cynthia. Did you not mean to write what you wrote? I don't think anyone saw. Darn autocorrect can really make things sound funny. These don't even go together. But when I laid them out, I was like, it could be a really bold quilt. There is a hint of purple inside of this print here. And I was justifying it, and I just went, I don't think they're going to like me doing that at all. There's nothing pretty about this combination, is there? Or is there? Be faster. All right, I'm going to do one of mine. But I'm not quilting mine, so I thought I'd sew that together. We'll just see. I got lots of stuff to quilt in here. I thought I was going to really like this as a quilt for my bed, and then I was like, wow, those colors are just too strong for me. I don't really like that combination for a whole quilt, but I do like it for placemats. And I did this one, which was kind of a sample of the different types of squares you can achieve using the quarter square triangles. So what's the difference between a quarter square triangle, I can't speak, and a half square triangle, you guys? There's a lot of confusion about this. So if you're going to do I have thread. I don't know where it's coming from, but I feel like it just keeps coming. No, that's a tail I cut off, I guess. So you guys know the answer? So if you use 2 half square triangles to make a square. And if you make 4 of those, then they become like a quarter square triangle. Because a triangle is a triangle, and it's always a triangle. Mathematically, that's not going to change. This was a lot of fun to free motion quilt, which most of it I did off camera. Sorry. All right, let's just do one square. What do we need? I'm just going to do one square, and then I'll quilt a little, because of the time, and I have a meeting after. So I can't stay on for 6 hours with you guys. Anyone have any questions before I actually start functioning? Sure wish these were 8.5. I might have to go back to the store and get more. This would definitely be a good one to make a template, unless you already have a template for an 8.5 square. And if I were to do this quilt pattern again, I would definitely be doing that, making a template that's 8.5 inch, or buy myself a ruler that's 8.5. Where are all my rulers? That's the main problem with me, is I have so many rulers. This one was supposed to be really cool. Do any of you have this one? And this was for me cutting lots of strips, and it has sandpaper on the bottom. I never quite got the hang of what to do with it, so I haven't used it yet, so don't judge it based on my not using it. Something I need to try. And then, well, I have a square somewhere, but I put it somewhere safe. One is 2 and the other is 4. Yeah, that's kind of it. Absolutely. Now that I'm catching up with the chat. Phone call coming through on my cell phone. This is good for me to pull this out, though, because I really need to finish it. And I'm going to be very nice to myself and do a good job. Did any of you recognize the song that was playing on my phone? It's my favorite song. It's been my ringer forever since the song came out. So basically, I'm going to square this off. I always really like this ruler. Easy for me to read for some reason. Easier than some. I always think I got this board laid out perfect, but then you guys know how to cut, right? So the 8.5 mark. looks too small. But this was almost right, right? This is the one that was not quite square. See, that little bit can throw you off. You really don't want to waste fabric. I was quiet so long. What is on your sewing table, you guys? Tell me in the chat. I want to know what you're working on. Okay. So then you can take and place one of your squares underneath your mat and use this as a gauge for 8.5. So you don't have to sit there and count across. And I did use washi tape before, and then I just kept cutting through my washi tape and it became like a lot of little pieces on the board. The other pieces for this quilt, I generally have these alternating. Please tell me I have some of this. Good. So this goes with that. I said I'd do one block, so we'll gather up what we need for one block. A baby quilt, blocks for the back, and a rainbow quilt for the grandbaby. I hope one day I'll have grandchildren. There we go. I had these like all grouped in blocks that were ripped apart and resized, and so, but I used all the ones that were done, and then it just made me stop. And they would be all straight if I didn't cut when I was too tired one night. Cut a lot of these just a little bit too small. So I'm going to make sure that these are going to be right. So to the opposite side seam allowance to this, with a 1/4 inch hanging out here would be the right amount. And here's the thing, I built this quilt with a fabric that I cannot stand the back of, or the right side of, but I absolutely loved the back of it. And I can't buy this fabric anymore unless one of you has some of that. It probably wasn't a very popular print, but boy, I sure do like the back of it. The back of it creates this marbling effect, and it blended really nicely with this batik that I had. So I ended up also not having enough of these fabrics. These are challenges that we face when we're quilting over a long period of time on something. So you can see this piece is not, this half square triangle is not very good. So I want to find one that's at least bigger than this. So that one will work. This is not how you build a quilt. You do it right the first time. I was also trying to tie colors that go together on each square. Like you see here. So I have this color square and I need four sets of these. So these are going to go like, this is what I do on when this color is in the middle. I decided to have these marbled fabrics coming out from this area here. So each of the 4 pieces that I choose must be in that same direction in order for the quilt to look good when I'm finished. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Donna. What did you say, Donna, that you feel bad about repeating yourself? Just finish the quilt for my... I don't think you're repeating yourself. No, me, I can't keep up with the chat when you guys get really chatty, and so if I don't respond to something you say, you can repeat it because I don't mind if you repeat it at all. So now you know what I'm trying to do is make sure that each one of these colored squares that I created is bigger or the same size as this. And this is a fast way to do it instead of measuring each one. So I have to do that. I got so many pieces. I sure am loving it though. It's gonna be a really pretty quilt when I finish. Okay, so I only need 2 of these for this. Did I already grab them? 2 of these. I'm only gonna do 1. Those don't fit. Maybe these do. Talk to me, you guys. Ooh, that one doesn't look cut right. This is why I really liked using I used the cutter, the crafter's edge, to cut all my squares. And then when I ran out, I used the rotary cutter, and that's how I ended up with some that were not straight. So the crafter's edge really helps cut perfect squares, so you don't have to think about it. This one's good. This is done, and this. Another thing I like to do is to put them together the direction that I'm going to sew them. So like this, and I put a clip on the side that I sew across. So that's one grouping. And then we're going to take this and sew this to this on that seam allowance. And then I'm going to bring these 2 together like that. And I know this side is now done, so I need to make this side over here. This square is already occupied by the other. So this one is going to be a 3 across. I think that's what I did. I don't know, it all comes together when you're not thinking so hard about it. So this one goes over here. And we need these 2. I also kind of like to make it Oh, I was doing that wrong, wasn't I? Yep. This is not supposed to be here. It's supposed to be another one like that that kind of ties that in. And it's going to go this direction. So I wanted to have this kind of carry on as if a stripe. And see how it's bright yellow on that one behind it? But there's some yellow here. So I want this corner piece to carry this to that. And I want to try to get a color that's similar to that here. And what that ends up doing is creating another kind of square in the design. We're getting there. I'm going to leave it all laid out until I'm done. Sure hope this is right. There we go. And that, and now we need, be kind of good to put a whole square underneath my pad. Okay, so we need 2 here. And I'm going to do that same thing on this side, carry that design down. Come out of there. Do any of you feel discombobulated when you're putting your stuff together? So this is going to be a primarily purple block. And here we go. I think this is too light of a contrast, or it goes too far into the green. See if I can. There we go. All right. Got all the pieces that I need to make one block. Hello, everybody. Hi, Diane. You put them in bags? That would be the ideal. In fact, when I did have a lot of them already cut, I did label them so that it went together a lot faster. Had I not made a whole quilt, taken it all apart, and then try to put it back together again, cut some of them with the seam ripper, because I'm not the most skilled seam ripper person, then I'd probably be done. Okay, now I remember what I do to construct this block. And how do I make sure that my block's going to be really perfect when I'm finished? Any of you guys have a guess? All right, let's see. I promise not to put my quilt away for another 5 months. All right. I'm going to use the liquid-based glue on this for some of it to keep the seams from shifting while I sew. I just feel like I'm just going to have to sort through it again. That's all there is to it. My design wall is actually right outside the door, and I was optimistic that I was going to have it hung today. I finally can get on a ladder with my knee, because my knee started acting up, which is why I didn't do it before. For this entire quilt, I've been constructing it using the Invisifil 100 weight polyester thread. And if I were making this quilt for a child, I would definitely not use this because they're likely to jump up and down on the quilt. I plan on this quilt to be one of those quilts where you go, don't sit on the quilt. Do any of you have a quilt on your bed that people are not allowed to sit on? Email me about the seam ripper that you like. If I can add it to the site, it'd be good. This is PolyFast. I thought it wasn't Invisifil. It's so silky and smooth. There's my color. Been using this lavender color for my quilt because it kind of blends in. See how beautiful that shines? And that's the Invisifil 100 weight 726. One of my favorite colors to piece and quilt with. If you're going to make a baby quilt, or not a baby quilt, but like a juvenile's quilt, someone where they're going to jump up and down, the lingerie thread is the best thread to piece your quilts together with. Because it stretches before it breaks. It's actually a lot stronger than polyester, which is why it's used in upholstery, just in a heavier weight. Instead of calling it lingerie thread, they call it polyester, but it's all nylon thread, twisted, bonded nylon thread. So there's like 3 strands twisted together to create this thread, and then they bond it so that they don't separate and become weaker like your woolly nylon thread does. The dogs are allowed on the bed. All right, let's do this. I found my son's ruler from elementary school today, and it's kind of warmed my heart. All right. You're all fond of the glue that glues us all together. I can't keep up with the chat. I'm so glad to see you guys writing so much. Keep it up. Keep chatting with each other. So what I do is I'm going to join these two. Should have pulled that camera out a little bit further. These two together, then bring it together with that, and then these two together and bring, oops. And then these two on the bottom together and then bring it. So this becomes one section. So I'm going to bring these two together and take it to the machine where we're going to set up for a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance. By the way, whenever I am going to do a lot of free motion, I have my seams flat. That way there's less bulk. And I make sure that I go off and back on again and really secure each end of my pieces, because if you don't, it can start to come apart along that seam. And you know that where that seam allowance is a 1/4 inch distance away from that edge there, I'm going to be starting inside of that ditch and then moving my way back and then coming forward. But before I do that, select the 1/4 inch seam allowance by selecting a left needle position on the sewing machine and taking measuring tape. And I'm going to place the needle down on one of the 1/4 inch marks, and then the foot has a little wire guide that I'm going to show you in a second. And I'm going to turn the nut on the guide, and it's going to move the wire. I'm going to move the wire over to the 1/4 inch mark. And this is how you achieve a 1/4 inch seam allowance. If you have a older machine or a little machine and you don't have a left needle position, or your machine only goes 5 millimeters wide, you might not be able to get a 1/4 inch. You might be just a little bit under a 1/4 inch. But know this, it doesn't matter. as long as the entire quilt is done with the same seam allowance. So if you just take the Satinedge guide all the way to the right and your needle is far over to the left and you sew a whole quilt together and the seam allowance is smaller, even if it's an 1/8 inch seam allowance instead of a 1/4 inch, all you're going to do is end up with a slightly larger quilt than you would if you used a 1/4 inch seam allowance. In fact, when we all started teaching quilt piecing, we taught with a 3/8 inch seam allowance. It was something that Kay Wood and I used to kind of giggle about as everyone stressed over using the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So you can break free from the 1/4 inch if you want. I gotta switch my bobbin. Yes, having a thinner thread does have less bulk in the seam as well. Great for embroidery in the bobbin, but not necessarily in the needle for embroidery. But this is great for in the needle and the bobbin for quilting. I grab my bobbins. I put them in a different place thinking it would be a good idea, but now I'm questioning it. Okay. This is my Invisifill bobbins. There's not much on here, but every once in a while I start listening to myself in my ear and forget to talk. So what do you think of the quilt hanging behind me? Something looks wrong on it. I'm going to be putting sashing in the middle as well. Get over there. My left arm is not very long. My arms weren't very long to begin with, and then when I had my shoulder break, they shortened my left arm about another inch. And when I thread the machine and have to get around all the equipment I have in front of my machine to give you a good show, that's when I realize how short my arm is. That's like the information you guys don't really need to know about me. I had to do my nails this morning because I didn't realize I'd paint all over my cuticles. So that's why I was late on getting things done today. Okay. Now you can use the glue all the way across, but you can also just use it on your ends to make sure that they don't move on you. And you can just do a little dot. And this is where you can be super precise and make sure that that seam allowance comes down, or the stitching line comes down right over the other one. Everything is so much easier without everything in front of me. Let's see. I have the microphone really in my line of sight. So that dot right there is going to hold that in place. And then another little dot over here. All right. If you want to make a quilt stronger when using thinner thread, use a shorter stitch length. It's harder to rip out the stitches should you need to, but using a thinner thread does make it easier to break the thread as well. Yeah, I'm planning on doing light sashing. I figure everywhere there's light color is where I can do real dramatic quilting and use a darker contrasting thread. I may even bring in all the colors that are in the fabric into these middle pieces and along the sashing. Or I was thinking about using the variegated thread where the color of the thread changes and try to find one that blends in with this one. And I know when I do that, I need to actually offer you those threads. And I do have samples here that I'm supposed to test. I think I have one of these that's variegated. So if I get a chance to use that today, I'll test that thread with you guys. All right, I got to make it so I can see something here. Good morning, everybody. That's me joking. I'm not that wacky, but I'm a little bit close to that today. And we do have short clips on the feet to help you to just do what you want to do right now. And this is one we'd call 1/4 inch seam allowances. So I've got to bring the needle down. And I want to bring it down so that it's going to start right in the seam between those two fabrics. And then I do a stitch forward. And then I go reverse. And I do that because it keeps these flaps from flipping up on you. My foot control is not working. Come on, move. All right, putting on the glasses. Then I go off and come back on again. Another thing I'd like to do is have a presser ready as well. If I have a presser ready, when I come to opposing seams, I drop my presser down like that and it keeps them from flipping up. All right, this mic has just got to move. There we go. So shortening the stitch length from a 2.5 to a 2.0 is advisable when working with thinner thread. 80-12 universal needle is what I'm using for this stitching. I always come off and go back on again, never ending off the edge because that makes for a weaker ending. Open it up. And then use the presser. Pressing at a 30-degree angle coming this direction. And you can see the point is perfect because the glue held it there. Now I'm going to flip the other side. So I press one direction and then I come back in the other direction with both seams folded over to one side. Then you come over like this and it kind of lifts it up for you. Then I come down like this and push it open. And this is why I only do a dot on the ends, because you can't open up your seam if you've glued it shut. I mean, you could peel them open because the glue is temporary anyway, because it's not really glue, is it? It is water-soluble stabilizer in a bottle. Now after I press like this, then I will use an iron and spray starch when I'm all finished. I should iron. And now once again, you can glue a little dot on each corner. I'm so glad, Marianne, that you like the presser that much. I made another one today that had a defect in the wood, so I don't send out imperfect pressers. So I now have like 6 colors to choose from, and sometimes I have a really hard time picking which one to use. Do any of you have more than one? How many pressers do you have? And then which colors did you choose? Good idea to do a dot right where the bump is, where those two seams come together, because that is where you're more likely to have the foot have a little bit harder time going over. And another thing that you can do to prevent that from happening is to just put a little dot. And you only need it on the opposing side. So I'm going to be sewing from this direction. I only need to glue on this side. I don't need to glue on that side as well. These glasses are different than my other ones. I still haven't found my other glasses. Bring the needle down into the seam where those two fabrics come together. So a couple stitches forward and a couple stitches back, and then all the way off. Hi, Sandra. Is this your first time watching my show? So now we're coming up on the opposing seam, and I get my presser ready. And I'm barely holding on. My fingers are not doing much, just a little push toward the foot, letting it do the work. And then I do that, and it keeps it from lifting up. But we already glued it as well, so then everywhere I have a seam, I go back again. Because why? Because we're using a really thin thread, and we are using flat seams. So it is a little bit weaker when you have a flat seam. Which is why you're not going to see me do strip piecing. This fabric was not cut straight. Either that or I grabbed one of the imperfect centers. I don't know. There we go. Once again, open it up. Seam going to one direction, press toward the fabric that sits higher. And the rule normally is press to the dark fabric so the dark fabric doesn't show through your lights. There's no rule though, you guys. There's no rule. There is science and logic to all of this. So what is the important factors on quilting this quilt? I am going to do it on my home sewing machine, not on a long arm machine. And whenever you have lots of different fabric shapes coming together, if they all come together with a folded over seam, there's a lot of bulk there. But if we flatten out the seam, it lays flatter and there's less chance for your needle to break on those spots. Now this happened because I did not make sure that this piece was square with this before I began. And you guys all know that I said that I didn't cut all these right, so we'll see what I have to do when I get there. And here we go, next side. So this is the other side. Bring these together. And this is one where it's like flipping over funny, so having the glue handy or your iron on would be good, but gotta glue that down so it doesn't bother me. There we go. And that's where I glue anyway, right? To make sure that those seams are going to line up right with each other. because we don't have that nesting that you can feel. You can't feel them overlap because they're flat. So you have to see them. Use your magnifying glasses if you need them, and that's what I have on. And another dot on this side. You can see my threads from where I ripped this out. Only a dot. Do you guys listen to music when you piece quilts together, or do you watch shows and kind of glance in between? Tell me in the chat. The more active you are in the chat, the more the YouTube algorithm likes it and thinks you like what you're watching. Hi, bye, Pearl. I guess we could change the time of the show for Pearl. I think every week she has to leave. I always feel bad that she has to go. This is the Satinedge Foot, so I just push toward it and it pushes back the other way. I don't have to have any tape or any magnetic seam guides or anything. And because the fabrics are glued together, I really don't have to do much. So just like one finger kind of pushing toward the foot. Gentle touch, come all the way off, go back on again, and cut while it's in. Press it over. I do really enjoy the process once all the fabrics are cut. I'd like to have little helpers that do everything else for me. See how perfect again? Another perfect point. Perfection is something that I try to achieve in piecing. I'm not going to tell you not to try to be perfect on this because it's math. And I have heard a lot of teachers on YouTube go, it doesn't matter, you can just square it off. And I know that I'm not the only one going, pardon me, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. Then why do I have these rulers and why have I paid all this money for all these things to cut perfect if I shouldn't expect to sew it perfect? And that's because they're not using our foot. So with the Satinedge Foot, you're able to achieve that accuracy in your seam allowance. I have a piece of thread in my mouth. I don't know how it got there. Have you ever had thread just appear on your tongue before? Have you ever left the room and then looked in the mirror later and you had threads all over you? I went out to, after years of doing shows, you'd think I would know to check my clothing before I leave. But I have had like tails of thread hanging on me, and I've had complete strangers go, you have something on your shirt. And it's like this really long piece of thread that I didn't cut. It's a lot easier to press off of your machine. And I didn't finish pressing over this seam here. So I press it to one side, now I'm going to press it to the other side. Another thing I recommend is spray starching your fabrics before you piece them. And I did not spray starch these because, well, I don't like turning my iron until I absolutely have to. Come on, open up. There we go. Then we open it and press. It's too soft because it has all this underneath it. So it presses better with a firm surface, smooth, firm surface beneath you. It's going to be time to bring the iron over here though. This is where I glued again, so we have to open it. Good idea to do that before it gets dry, but if it dries, you still can pull it apart. It's just easier with tweezers. I may have to take next week off, you guys. I've missed 2 shows, so far this year. Trying not to, but I will let you know if I have to. Okay, once again, I'm going to glue down the middle. But I can see that this has a little tail. These are our Appliquick scissors, the 3-hole scissors. This is the medium. And see how you just take your 4 fingers like that, and each finger, including the pinky and pointing finger, has a resting place, and then your thumb goes in there, and it makes it more ergonomic to use. They don't hurt across your top of your hand or your thumb. And this is the medium. Another thing it does is, here's a piece that's bad. Nope, it's on my quilt. Here we go. So if you have to do applique, like patchwork applique, and you have lots of little shapes to cut, if you normally cut, you know how you can drop your fabric? So using these correctly, and by the way, they cut right and left handed. So now if I come along and I drop the fabric, the scissor has hold of the fabric. Left-handed, and I'm not left-handed, so bear with me. And that's a person that doesn't cut left-handed, so you can see how nice and clean it cuts. My little thread nips have the same feature, but not 3 holes. Put a little dot where the seams come together, a little dot on the other end. Starting from this end, and then the last. You like my fabric choices? Whoops. Man, I can't keep a hold of this today. Needle down in the middle of the 2 seams. A couple stitches forward, a couple stitches back. Stitch length is 2.0 stitch length, which means I'm getting more stitches per inch, which would be the equivalent of, we normally have 18 stitches per inch, so it would be, I mean, it's normally 12 stitches per inch. If you have a machine that has just numbers like 1 through 5, or you have the numbers where it says how many stitches you stitch per inch, this is the equivalent of 18 stitches per inch. And what's funny, Fiona, is this fabric here, I mean, it's not bad, but I like the backside better. Go back over that. And I come all the way to the raw edge and go back. So double stitch back on that. Light touch. Don't try to force the fabric. Let the foot do the guiding. Once again, have that seam allowance all fold to one side for one pressing. Now flip that seam allowance over to the other side. Do the same thing. And I find this gives me the most accurate press across when I go to do the ironing with a real iron, because if you've ever folded or pressed your seam before, sometimes it looks like it's lined up properly, but what really is happening, because you can't see with the iron, is that it's done some kind of a crease and it looks like your seam is there. Has that ever happened to you guys? And then you end up with a square that's too small and you find out that your fabric was just a little bit folded over. So this prevents you from doing that. And trying to manipulate your fingers like this with a hot iron right there. Well, I have never successfully done it without burning myself with at least the steam. And if you've been told not to use steam when pressing, I'm going to tell you why it's okay and when and how to do it. So you can see here where these seams are overlapping, and they overlap much nicer because they are flat. It feels much flatter or smoother or lighter weight than the folded over seam allowances meeting. This piece is ready for the iron. But I'm going to wait. And these two fabrics come together, and I clipped it so that I know which side to sew on. Still just a little bit nervous. I'm going to lay it down, considering how my day started. So you see that section? Set it aside. So now I'm doing the sides of the block. Going down this column. And this is how it's going to go together. There we go. And I like to always sew with the seam allowance up, by the way, rather than sewing like this. I want to see what's going on. It's also easier for me to know where to place my needle. And I'm going to do this one without glue, just so you guys can see that the foot does operate without it. It's just a lot more reassuring, especially if you have issues with your hands, to know that it's not going to slip on you. Once again, I still come forward for one hole all the way to the edge of the seam allowance. Come off, come back on again. And then now I put my finger on that spot, trying not to pull as the sewing machine tries to take the fabric. So just a really light touch and one finger here again. So that just requires more brain cells. If it's glued, well, you don't have to worry about keeping those fabrics together at the end. The Creative Feet site is on the very first comment in the chat. It's creativefeet.com. And I have finished all the presser orders, so if you place an order for a presser, you won't have as long to wait. Finished them this morning before going live today. You do wait up to 4 days lately for me to make your presser, because I am the one who makes your presser. They're little pieces of art for you. That is the current statement that I'm going to make, because I may end up having to have someone make these again. And this is August 19th, 2021, and I am still the one hand making these pressers for you. I picked it up. I did it wrong. I sewed on the wrong side, you guys. I sewed on the wrong side. But it's okay because whatever I do on this side, I just alternate it for that side. So I'll just do this so that I can think it through. So I'm really, oh, I can't do that, can I? I gotta look. I might have to rip out a seam. Ah. Did I? No, I didn't do it wrong. Oh, thank goodness I didn't do it wrong. That's why it pays to clip the side you're going to sew on. Yay, I thought I messed up. Although I may have messed up because I moved the fabric. Okay, so now, once again, we're going to make sure that we line up this stitching line all the way to the end. And this would definitely be a time when I would say, I'm not going to not use my glue. Because when I don't, it can slip. It has nothing to do with your skill. It just has to do with the science of how the fabric is fed through on the sewing machine. There's a lot of layers here. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And even though they're not overlapping like you do when you seat a seam or you nest a seam, it still could move on you. And here we go. After a while, you'll get really good at knowing where you are on the fabric, and you'll trust the guide is that 1/4 inch distance away from the needle. And it's just barely moving. Notice that I don't move with my fabric, that my hands are anchored and my elbows are resting on the table and my arm is resting on the machine and my other elbow is resting on the table. So all the upper body muscles that generally are engaged when people sew with other feet are not needed with the creative feet. With all 3 of our feet, you're able to rest your body and you won't feel the inclination to lean down to get close to your needle because you don't watch the needle. You watch the front of the foot instead. Right there. Just keep making sure the fabric's touching there. Hi, Shirley from Canada. Another Sandra, a new Sandra. Hi, I think I said hi to you already, but I didn't realize you were different. We have lots of Sandras. We got lots of Cindys and Sandras. And what's the other one? We have more than one. We have, well, it's just silly that I'm paying attention to that. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Fabrically Speaking Live. If this is your first time visiting us, welcome to the show. I go on every Thursday at 2 unless I miss a Thursday. I am debating on taking next week off. And basically I have to heal my thumb. So that's why I did something. I hammered my thumb. I did. And I kind of need to rest it. We'll see. Frequently I say I'm going to take a break and then I don't. All right. Next piece. Yep, that's right. I'm either hurting myself climbing up ladders or using hammers. I shouldn't say that. I'm for the most part, I don't hurt myself. How about you? Are you guys ruffians like me? Do you turn wood or do anything that people go, you do that? You're a woman. Are you sure you should be doing that? Can't you hire a guy for that? Amy hasn't showed up. Are we all going to worry that Amy's not here now? Do you guys, Are you connected that well together now? I did notify everyone in the school. I hope Amy's okay. I love how connected you're all getting. And those of you who are lurking in the background, we have a school as well. It's called Create with Clare Rowley. And I have a link for it in the description after the video is over. You can see it. And join. It is a free school. So a lot of the people that are in the chat are actually also talking in the school. And did I just do this completely wrong? I did. At least I caught it before I went much further. Oops. Do you guys see what I did wrong? I gotta mute for a second. I'm here. I'm just finishing my muffin so it doesn't get dry. And I don't want you to hear me eat it. I'm almost done. It's a really healthy muffin that I got from the natural grocer with flaxseed in it, and it's need a lot of water to eat it. It's very healthy. In the morning I have the top of it, and then in the afternoon I have the other half of it as a snack, and I'm really enjoying it very much. Here we go. So you guys should use your seam rippers and not just tear the thread like I did. Tinkerbell just sneezed. Poor thing. Oh, she's got the worst allergies. Bless you, Tinkerbell. I'm sorry. She is fed up with this allergy season. So this time I'm trying it without pressing it to the opposite side, just to kind of see how it goes. Can you guys hear her sneezing? Oh, you can hear her. Aw. Come here, baby. Aw. Are we just having the sneezies? Poor thing. No fun. No fun at all, huh? Is that better? I think sometimes I distract her and then she forgets what she was doing and stops sneezing. I gotta remove some of these threads. Where's my seam ripper? I barely ever use it. So I'm counting on you, whoever it was that said you got a really good seam ripper, to tell me. Send me an email. There's no such thing as I can't do it. I can do it. I can do it. I remember my mom teaching me how to tie my shoes, and I wouldn't let her. And I said, I can do it. I can do it. And she goes, oh, you have I can do it disease. There we go. It's her fault I ended up that independent. My mom had us taking wallpaper off the floor and laying tiles while my dad was off. This was a different part of our life. You don't need to know all that. I need to bring the iron over. Do any of you share the I can do it disease? This is really sloppy looking, so I'm thinking it needed to be trimmed what do you call it, squared off? We'll see. My dad used to sell hearing aids before he invented the hoop at all and before he opened a sewing machine dealership. He had a hearing aid dealership, and when I was in preschool, I would go to preschool and then come to work. Excuse me. And it was because of this time in my life that I realized I could be an inventor. He had me making ear molds for hearing aids, and this is at the beginning of hearing aids. It says how old I am. And he actually was involved in the in-the-ear hearing aid development and developed one of the first soundproof rooms for doing hearing testing. There we go. So using spray starch, you can use steam and shoot steam through. And you just don't want to iron. You don't want to move the iron around. You want to just set it down and push the steam through. And then pick it up and then move it over. And as you do that, it shrinks back to its size. And it'll lay beautifully flat for you. And you can see here I have this issue. That's because I didn't take the thread out. And see if I can get away with it. There we go. Come on. It never pays to be lazy at the beginning. Just do it right the first time, and then you don't have to rip it out twice. All right, nice and flat. Did I not finish this one? And then if you heat the fabric and heat the ironing board cover or ironing pad like this first, then the wooden presser actually works better than it does without the heat of the pad below it. So this was really baggy, and now it's not baggy anymore. But I can see this is not straight. And that is a long story about why these are not cut very well. And it's going to go together like this next. But before I do that, I want to press this as well with spray starch. I've already done the inside seams. Did you just knock something over, Chase, and you don't know how you did it? I don't know what he knocked over, but he's puzzled by it. He can't figure out how he did it. Sorry you're feeling badly, Fiona. Hi, Kara from Illinois. Welcome to the stream. I will not be in Pacific International in October, I don't think they're doing it either, are they? Where'd it go? There it is. This is terribly cut, but we'll see if I can get it to fit. So see how wonky that is? Where is it? There we go. See that? And I'm going to determine if I should square it. This I don't know how that happened. But I'm gonna sew with it on this side, and I'm gonna let the Satinedge Foot feel that. And then I'll trim only after I know for sure that it's gonna fit on the other side. But I should not have shapes that strange shaped. This is because I took this quilt apart, put it back together again. I'm gonna go ahead and sew this, even though I got this iron hot. I am going to glue my everywhere there's a seam allowance as well. So, anybody have any questions? I'm not doing any shows, that's right, in 2021. I committed myself to building up the school and still have a lot to do in there. I'm sure those of you who are waiting on the Creative Fit Extensive can agree that I am not allowed to go anywhere until I get that class open. One little dot. I honestly am impressed that any vendors are doing it. Things are so unsure right now. Are you guys traveling to shows? Any of you going to the International Quilt Festival in October? Are you going to get on a flight and go there, or take a car ride and go there? Still really hard to hire in our area. People are enjoying not working around here. So I'm going to flip it over so that I can see that cream color fabric, because I'm pretty sure that was straight. Is this blurry? I thought I focused it. I guess it's not blurry. So see how you can kind of get away with it? This piece is bigger, and it's just kind of lifting it up so that I can catch the edge of this fabric. It would be better to have your fabrics cut straight before you begin. But should you have an issue, now you know you can kind of get away with it. This is where I always go back over my stitching. Nope, nope, and nope, giggles. I totally don't know what I said to make you say that. See where they all come together? Isn't that nice? Okay. Time to sew the other part. I just feel like going like this. But I know that I frequently wish I didn't do that by what happens on the other side. Using the presser has been more reliable than the iron. My dog is digging the carpet. I don't know if you can hear. Got to at least release the glue. Remember, this is really not glue. It's water-soluble stabilizer that's wet. I didn't secure this seam enough. So I need to sew this. I must have thought I was chaining on there. Remember, because we're sewing a flat seam, it's weaker where all the joins come together. Is that what's going on? I don't know, somehow I unthreaded my machine. I can't remember if Amy said she was doing something this week or not. Kind of feel like she said she was going to go see someone this week. But I could be wrong. So many of you. No traveling. Oh, okay. Now I know what. So no, 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 no. So that's why I'm not doing shows. I'm sure there's some people that are brave. But I simply can't take a chance on a show being good and then finding out it's not. Especially in California, they make it more expensive to do a show than any other state. All right. I'm not going to mess around. I'm going to follow through and sew the other side and then do the final ironing. I'll just turn this thing off so it doesn't make noise. These two pieces go together. The DLQ quilt show in Yuma in January. Well, at least that's a good time to be in Yuma when it's cooler. I've been there when it's like 120 degrees. DLQ. What does DLQ stand for? Yeah, I don't even really have firm plans to attend the show in January down in Phoenix. I was already trying to not do shows anymore, by the way, before COVID hit. Because I have plans for so much for you guys. Pressing to one side. Pressing to the other side. I am, though, thinking of planning my first retreat here in Prescott at the Prescott Resort Casino. So if you guys are willing to travel to Prescott, Arizona, and there's already so many here in the winters especially. Does that sound fun to any of you? I was actually about to do that in 2019. I was making the final plans for a retreat. So relieved that I didn't finish. I would have had to cancel it. Perfect points. Gotta love perfect points. Desert Lily Quilters. What a cute name. There are a lot of people that want me to come to their area, and we have stores here, and I've offered to teach for free, and none of them have taken me up on it. It's bizarre. There we go. It wouldn't let your... There we go. I had to let your comment be posted for some reason, Marianne. It didn't want to share it, probably because you mentioned the word website. I guess it may not let you... You guys may not be allowed to post links in the chat. I don't know what their rules are. For any of you that are in the Arizona area, my art is going to be on display at the Mountain Artists Guild Gallery starting on the 24th of this month and going through October. If accepted, I will have 3 paintings in this show. Let's see if I didn't mess this up. I did it right. Yay, yay. Oh my gosh, I'm so relieved. I'm having so much fun painting again, you guys. Something I had to kind of give up from all those years of traveling. Yay. Almost done with the block. Is there time for me to quilt? There is time for me to do some free motion quilting. I figured there would be. Doesn't take that long to sew a whole block when you have your pieces already cut. Oops. I totally forgot. Sorry, guys. Not like you didn't see me sew a bunch of pieces together, but that was kind of boring. Yes, it is in Prescott. The Prescott Mountain Artist Guild. And then it looks like I'll be a featured artist at the Raven Cafe in the spring. And if you come up not this Friday, but next Friday, it is the 4th Friday Art Walk in Prescott. And I'll be part of that. Meeting at the Guild for our show, and then I'll be walking with other artists throughout the town. It's a really fun event that happens every fourth Friday. The whole town, all of the galleries and all of the businesses open up and have bands. And everyone kind of walks from location to location, and they offer free appetizers and wine, and it's a lot of fun. The whole town wakes up. Kind of like a, what do they call it? A pub crawl, but it's an art gallery crawl instead. Yeah, I'm totally into this quilting now. I'm gonna try really hard to finish this weekend. I think I was short like 6 blocks from finishing that I had to kind of piece together. Adding sashing will make it easier on me to be able to achieve this quilt. Come on. It was just very difficult to get anything more in this room, and getting the design wall set up is, if you could see all this, the wires and poles I have in here to do this, it's a challenge. Try not to make an excuse. I don't give up easy. We got another strange looking thing going on here. Oh, this one's really bad. And normally I would not tell you to try to finagle something together. It's not as bad as I thought. It looked worse. If you're in the school, I will be announcing the art show, because I know some of you might be interested in acquiring some of my art. There will be 3 original paintings offered for sale at this, and then I also have prints. And we are building a site online for that as well. So much going on. Here we go. Thank you for sharing the information, Marianne. Here we go. I almost didn't say Marianne. It was very weird. It was like my brain. Don't forget the end. There's a new store up here I just found out about. The turquoise something. Turquoise thimble or the turquoise thread. And I'm going to probably go in there and check it out. I haven't seen it yet. One of the locals called me up and told me about it. Asked if I would teach in there, and I'm like, I don't even know about it. They may have me in as a teacher. We'll see. I'll let you guys know. I'm going to offer them the same offer I offered the others, which was to come in and do like some live free stuff. My time is limited, though. I have to keep my focus on that. Not give too much of myself. My kids are always warning me. Well, if you do that, that's something else that you have to do. You can't be everywhere at once, Mother, no matter how much you want to be. Oh, it's so nice up here, you guys, right now. It's luscious. It's green everywhere. And this whole week is no rain expected. From the last time I looked, anyway. I'm looking forward to going out on my paddleboard, getting into Watson Lake, hanging out with the geese and the ducks. Don't you just love it when your points come together, you guys? I can't assemble this for you because the quilt is not done yet, so I don't know if you feel satisfied with what you saw, but you saw me complete this square. And to know how I did this, I started out with 8.5-inch squares, and then I sewed all the way around the 8.5-inch squares, and then I cut an X chop, and then open them up, and that's how you end up with your half square triangles that are 1/4 the size of an 8.5-inch block. And so that's it. And then always having the center blocks being 8.5 inches as well. So now I'm going to grab something and do a little free motion quilting because we have a little time. I can't wait to actually quilt on the real quilt. Let's see what I got here to quilt on. I feel like see here. I feel like doing something worthwhile though. I could work on this because I'm never going to get it done if I don't do it. This is kind of boring for those of you who've been watching though, because it's just I have circles left to do. What have I got? Come show yourself. Give you something to look at while I fumble around and try to find it. I have a bunch of this, so if I were to make one block like that, but I don't think I have them all sewn together. I just can't take a chance on using something. If these are too small, I could use my 2 small ones. I'm not going to do this to you guys. I'm just going to grab a square. Yeah. That'd be something I can quilt. Unless you want me to show you what I mean on how to do that quarter square triangle thing. Designing as you go at the end of your show, not a good idea, Claire. Ooh. I got something I can quilt. This will teach you something else too. This is a quilt that I started messing around with, and I used a fusible batting, so I was having to use a foot. Or did I use a spray? But I found that if I went in there and I separated it, that it worked better. This is a fusible batting. And this is why I went away from using fusible batting, because the needle grabs as it exits and kind of lifts up, and so it forced me to use a foot. And one of the neat things about the Octi-Hoops is that you don't need to use a foot. And I get asked a lot, how do you handle a bigger quilt? Because usually I just quilt little squares while I'm here. Mostly because I have so much around me, it's nearly impossible to do something really large live, which if I can do it, I'm going to do it, but we'll see. I've been planning rigging for the ceiling and having like straps coming down to lift the quilt in its overall size, but I don't know if I can do it with all of the camera equipment. If I can't do it, it's because I just simply can't do it in my limited space, but I think I'll be able to achieve what I was thinking, which is to have heavy enough cable to come down from the ceiling and then hook a pole on it. And so basically you lay your quilt over the pole, and the pole kind of just lifts up the quilt, but it doesn't take hold of the quilt. And with bamboo batting, we should be able to achieve that. That's one idea I had. Okay, what am I doing? I'm going to show you how I handle a bigger quilt, because I unstrapped this. I think I have a set of quiltlets in here. Where are they? Top drawer? Here. The quiltlets are elastic straps and safety pins. I'm going to take a It's my lunch. All right. So this is a lot bigger than you've seen me do in here, and this is how I handle it. I roll the quilt like this, and I'm going to roll it on this side as well. And I usually leave about 20 inches in between the rolls. $18 inches is fine as well. So if you're looking for these on our website, they're under supplies, and they're just elastic straps and safety pins. And how you handle this. Get out of the camera. Take a safety pin, piece of elastic, fold the elastic under a little bit like that. Pin through that, and that keeps this from destroying the elastic. There. And I'm going to pin not through the roll, but just to the side of it. And you just go straight through, and you can see the pin right there. Then you take the elastic and fold it over again. And then you're going to take that pin tip back through the quilt so that the safety pin is parallel with the edge of this roll. And then you close it up. And now you have this strap that holds your quilt. Do that on both sides about every 8 to 9, maybe 10 inches apart. So do another one. Thank you, Sandra. So I'm going to do a couple more close. Boy, I can't believe how close I got the camera. So we fold under the elastic, pin through, 10 inches apart, come down, pin through, come around, find the tip without your fingers. Find the tip with your eyes, not your fingers, is what I usually say to show. If you ever poke yourself and bleed on your quilt, your own saliva will neutralize your blood. Another option is shampoo. Shampoo does cut oils and other things. And we go through again. Where is it? There it is. I took this to a show and ended up not using the same bobbin thread. What you can see back here is I started using different color threads that I had at a show, which I swore I wasn't going to do because I was going to do the whole quilt with a yellow bobbin. I'm going to do the same thing on this side, and what we're trying for is the same location on the quilt on opposite sides. This makes sense to you guys? You guys going, I got elastic, I'm ready. Yeah, I could do a lot with those not square pieces, can't I, Cynthia? I'm not giving up on them. I got some furniture that needs things. I want to do a table runner for a dresser. So you see, whoops. I really do try to make it the exact same spot on the opposite side. All of this is easier to do when you're not live. There we go. Anybody have any questions? It's a good time to ask questions as I have to do something boring like this. I also use these to wrap up towels before doing embroidery. So if you have an embroidery machine and you struggle with large objects, this is a great way of taming them or controlling them. It's also awesome for hand quilting, sitting on your couch. It gets you to gather up the quilt itself, so you only have a limited area to focus on and you don't have to worry about everything else getting all discombobulated. What did I do? Slid the mouse. So did you see me do this at a show, Marianne? Have you guys ever wanted to quilt a fabric like this and you thought it'd be nice to be able to do all the Pooh Bears in yellow and all the Eeyores in blue, but it's hard enough just to quilt, let alone make sure that just that color is in a specific spot? Well, you can use a neutral color bobbin and switch from all the different color needle colors. But you don't have to do Pooh Bear and then Eeyore and then, what's the pig's name? Or the elephant's name? I don't remember his name. You don't have to do just that little area and keep changing your thread. Instead, you can take and put yellow in and hop all around and do all the yellow elements without having to re-thread the machine, because with the Octi-Hoops, you can't pucker the back of your quilt. It's like super awesome. Oh my God, I can't believe I said that. Super awesome. It must be getting towards the end of this show. And I do like to keep my elastics flat so they're not twisted as I go around. This left hand is definitely different than it used to be. Come out. There we go. And I'm not going to do this whole quilt right now because it's easier to do it on the floor for sure. Simply because we just don't have time for me to do all of that. Sometimes you can just take a strap like this, and instead of using it to roll the quilt, you can just have one as a loop. And I developed this for a woman who had her left hand amputated due to complications from diabetes. She did not have a left hand. And she was able to safety pin them together like that. So you have a loop like this, and then you can just plop it in wherever you need it so that you can wear your quilt as you go. And this is important because as you watch me use the Octi-Hoops, you're going to see that we don't grab our quilt when we quilt. We hold on to a little handle. Put these away and I will show you. There we go. If you're going to use elastic, make sure it's soft to your skin. So instead of going like this and moving the quilt beneath the sewing machine needle, some batting. We're going to use 2 of the Octi-Hoops. Uh-oh. Okay. A system I thought I had working did not work. I just dumped a bunch of stuff in my trash. Okay, so we're going to take and we're going to use 2 of the Octi-Hoop frames. I'm not going to use the largest frame because it doesn't work out for my hand size. What you do is you determine based on the size of your hand as to which of the 2 smaller frames is best for you to use. And if your hand is smaller than the top frame, because we actually steer with this little handle, we actually put our hand down as we draw with this, and then you just go like this and move the hoop, which moves the whole quilt. And since my hand is smaller, once I reach a certain point, and the needle will be here, once I reach a certain point I can no longer move because my fingers are not long enough, and that makes you feel like lifting up your elbows. And once you lift up your elbows, you end up with terrible quilting. You'll just be like all over the place. So this changes so much about quilting. I just grabbed my glasses with the glass. Okay, I'm going to remove the sewing machine's presser foot. Why isn't it working? These buttons are not moving when I think they are. It's the elephant. Who's the elephant? Heffalump? I never learned Heffalump's name. Not funny. I want to use a light bobbin. A good option for this would be the lingerie thread because it's kind of translucent. think these are clear. You could also use an invisible thread. This is our clear invisible in your bobbin, and then you won't see any stitching on the top. And this is the thickness of hair. And by the way, you can iron right on our nylon thread and it does not melt. I can even show you later if you guys remind me. I'm just going to use the invisible because I want you to see. If you've ever been told you can't use invisible thread in the bobbin, now you know that you can. You just want to wind your bobbin slower. And when it's in the machine, it actually pulls tighter than other thread. So it increases bobbin tension without you having to increase bobbin tension. Remember that whenever you feel the need to increase your bobbin tension. And I know that the batting choice, the fusible batting choice, did make it so that I had to use a foot. And on my machine, I have, oh, I don't even know where all the feet are. I'm going to give it a try without the foot first. Take the ankle that came on your machine and put it somewhere safe so you don't sit there and go, oh no, where'd I put it? If you say out loud where you put something when you do it, you'll be more likely to remember, by the way. So we're going to have this frame beneath the quilt, this frame on top of the quilt, so you won't be able to see this frame at all. The handle goes in the smaller of the two frames. You rest your hand on the frame that is bigger and below, and you won't be able to see it, but you'll be able to feel it. And your hand is on that. That allows your hand to move and the quilt to move without you having to lift your elbows. And I will prove it in a second. You're using the invisible thread to quilt all the time? A lot of people do. I like to see my stitch because I'm good at it now. In the beginning, I didn't really feel like I was good at it. I got purple thread in, so I'm going to quilt on this purple one. So I'm placing the other frame beneath it. And now you can see how easy the quilt moves on the sewing machine. It just slides. Because it's got the quilt frame on the bottom, lifting the quilt up. I got stuff everywhere. I can just imagine all these scissors falling on my toes. So you need to definitely make sure that there's nothing behind the machine or beside the machine that's going to catch on the quilt, because your mind is going to be focused on the fun. I have a lost ink bottle. And by the way, my son's just waiting on one image from me, and the Lemure inks will be up on our site. So by morning. I'm in search of purple on the fabric. So this is what I'm going to be doing is putting my wrist in here and my wrist over here. So I don't have to carry the quilt. The quilt is carried by my body. And my elbows are resting on the table. And then the hand that you write with rests on the frame beneath it. And then the other non-dominant hand grabs the corner and brings the two frames together, and it moves everything as one. Why isn't it moving? There we go. Boy, it looks so dark in there. I might have to adjust lighting here. Let's see. That's better. And I have to be able to get my face in the correct position. So once again, you slide into the elastic strap. See how it's loose? You don't want it to be really tight on your wrists. And you always want to grab the strap that's opposite it so that it doesn't cause your quilt to do this. Guess I'll work. Well, this is like off. There's not even batting in there. So we'll come down here. Huffalump, is that the name of that purple? Seems like they could have given him a cuter name. I'm really not in the right position here. I need another strap on here. Concentrating. Claire is quiet when she's concentrating. Oh my God, I'm talking in the third person. What time is it? It's time for Claire to talk in the third person. I just did it again. Oh my goodness. Okay. I need another strap on the other side though, because that's just how it works. It's like I have to push a button I normally have to push once. I have to push it twice. It's persnickety. Do you guys walk around talking in third person? Do you walk around your house talking out loud? Imagine how I feel here knowing that you're watching and I can't hear you talk. And so I'm talking and I want to hear your response, but you're not there. I know that I was not as good as I am now at quilting with these. When I first invented these, it was a learning experience for me. There's lots of videos on my YouTube channel. Be sure to check them out. And know that you need to practice just like you had to practice to drive a car. You have to practice to quilt. You want to make sure you're not laying on your quilt, that it's not bunched up and stuck on your knee. Because once you get into it, your mind will be just zoomed in and focused on just that little elephant. I think his name should be Ellie. Bye, Marianne. Enjoy your company. All right, elbows down, wrists through the elastic strap. And I don't have a foot on, so we're going to see how it does. I should be using the super non-stick needle. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. Bring up the bobbin thread if you can. It's there. Invisible thread. If you can't see the thread, it's because it's invisible. Come on. Where's my tweezers? See if I can get away with it. It's up. I got away with it. But I'm not in my elastic strap. I'm straining. Okie dokie. I have to swing. I can't get my foot control to work. Go. Whoa, there we go. Up and down. Sorry if my head is in the way. You can come up, come up. So basically I'm tracing the design that's already there. And I can do so because I'm steering with this and I'm not having to carry the quilt because it's connected to me. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed, and I'm going to go around the grass. Because I can. Why? Because I can see. Because there's no foot in my way. I can see those lines that would be blocked by the presser foot. Elbows down, shoulders relaxed. That's an instruction that I say constantly to myself as I'm quilting. Especially when I start feeling the desire to lift my elbows, which only really happens when I try not to stop and readjust my hand positioning. And you just scoot the frames to proceed. I'm going to go around this pink ear, stay in the purple with the purple thread. Go over the line, come back over. This ear may have been done by one of my customers at a show because when I needed to use the ladies' room because no one would ever let me leave the table, I would get someone quilting and then I would go, okay, I'm going to go to the ladies' room. I'll be right back. And they go, no, don't leave me quilting without you. And they'd never even done it and they did just fine. Elbows down, shoulders relax. I can hop over, but I need to secure it first. I'm going to come over here and hop. This is good because I am showing you something different than I normally show. And this was already stitched. So now I'm going to back up a little bit. And I'm going to show you how you can then just hop over. And I'm going to do a purple flower. So you see how you don't have to stop and worry about changing your colors of thread as you proceed. You go all the way across and do all the purple elements. Of course, it would be more affordable for you to tie yourself a knot of both needle and bobbin thread and hop over, rather than having tails of thread carrying from one flower to the next. Okay, so if there's anything else that you guys want me to show, why is that transition button not transitioning? I hope that you feel that you benefited from this lesson. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes into the live, and I'm trying to keep it at 2 hours. Do any of you have any last minute questions? Because I'm going to bid you adieu as I have a meeting that I have to go to today. No questions? Are you guys even there? Hello? Hello, are you guys there? I'm going to scroll just a little bit and see if there's any questions I may have missed. All right, so no questions, and as long as you got some joy out of this, I hope that I helped you to have some distraction from the realities of our life right now. And thank you to all of you, I think they say Blue Star families, and all of our servicemen and women around the globe, and to all of the families. I'm praying for the safety of all of the servicemen and all of the people in Afghanistan right now. I love you all so much. Try not to bring you down. But I tell you what, free motion quilting, painting, drawing, sketching, inking fabric, which also could be called fabric painting, not to confuse you guys. with the right fabric paints, it feels like it's ink. So the Lemures and the Jacquard paint that you see on our site can be used as paint, and also in the techniques that I show, it behaves like ink. So you end up with soft fabric, just like this fabric feels when you use it the right way. So, because I know I was saying inking all the time, and someone was like, I don't find ink there, I found paint. So we do have some that's just ink though. But all of it is safe on fabric and just actually absolutely dreamy on fabric. Okay, I got that pulled up and that's ready. Where would I start if I was starting all over again? Constance, I'm trying to answer your question, but I'm not sure what you're getting at. So this is a 2-hour and 20-minute now video. And for the first part, we talked about piecing. I showed how to piece this square right here and how to get your points to all be perfect. So, and at the end, I decided to show you guys how to quilt something larger than just a square using our quiltlets, which are elastic straps and safety pins. So if you can elaborate on your question, then I can help you understand better. But remember, immediately following this, you can access and watch the video from start to finish. And when I do end, there is a thumbs up that I hope you'll hit if you found this video beneficial. And if you did enjoy it and like it, well, that's the like button. And if you've yet to subscribe to my channel, I sure hope you'll do so today. And be sure to check out my school, createwithclarerowley.com, at create.clarerowley.com. All of the links to these different sites are available underneath the description, where you see the word see more, and there's a little arrow pointing down. You click on that and it opens up all the links to the products you've seen me use here today, and in my school and my website. And I hope to see you next Thursday. If I am not here next Thursday, it just depends if I can get my thumb okay by then. If I'm not here next week, well, you'll know, because I will have something up saying I'm not here. It's really hard for me to commit to take a day off. So normally, and this is August 19th, 2021, and I may skip next week, which would mean that our next episode will be in September. And that is what I'm leaning toward. So I will see you Thursday after next at 2 o'clock for the 33rd episode of Fabrically Speaking Live for season 2. I hope you're enjoying the show, because I enjoy you so much. I love you guys. Bye.